any sense to me. I don't see consistency at that point.
Assuming that he did write them, you just can't assume he had told anybody the Damascus Road experience if he doesn't ever mention it. We can't assume he said what Luke said. It just seems to me the same thing with a lot of these claims for consistency. You're just reading in the thing. It's like, how do we know it later? Institutional struggles were like the thing debating the Gentile mission in Acts 11 and Acts 15. My point is not that they surely would have quoted Jesus, and we find it in the minutes. They never would have had such a debate if the parting words of the resurrected Son of God was to get your butt out there to all the nations and preach. They're going to sit around and say, nah, I don't think he meant it. Peter, what do you think? Well, I did have a vision once. Maybe we ought to do it. It's just impossible this going to continue. Or the food offered to idols thing. You know, if this had been settled by the Jerusalem decree, why is Justin Martyr's debating it 100 years later?
So notice you just said it is impossible that could have happened.
Or I'd like a good explanation.
Would you agree with me that the Old Testament text contains numerous statements saying there is only one true God, that Yahweh is the creator of all things?
There are a few, enough to know that somebody believed it in the time of
and yet the
exile.
Mormons believe that Jehovah is the son of Elohim.
But they're picking up on other passages
we'll pick
in the
up on
Psalms
this in
and
just
elsewhere.
a moment. We will pick up on this in just a moment. If you have endured sterile debates in the past, you'll appreciate the lively, very real interaction between Robert Price and James White. Thank you, Robert. We now reverse roles. Dr. White begins a 15-minute cross-examination of Dr. Price's remarks. Dr. White, you now have the lead.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Price, could you explain to us, please, what kind of evidence you would need to believe that a miracle of any type took place in first century Palestine?
It's too late. There's no way to know. I can tell you what I would accept is very likely a miracle now, a healing miracle or something. If somebody could show, look, there's just no medical way, I'd say, well, then that's great. It's a miracle. I don't know where to put it, but I have no reason to deny it.
So there could not possibly be any kind of evidence from antiquity that you would find to be convincing that a miracle took place in the first century?
I don't know how it would be given the nature of ancient documentation. Tell me what you'd have in mind that would.
Well, I think it has to do with the presuppositional issue.
No.
Yeah, if it is not a presupposition, well, here, let me read you another quote and then let you answer that. You wrote at the end of your essay in the Historical Jesus 5 Views book, quote, "Might there still have been a historical Jesus who, however, has been irretrievably lost behind the stained glass curtain of his own glorification? Indeed, but I should think the burden of proof lies with the one who would affirm such a Jesus," end quote. Now, given your use of the principle of analogy, how could any evidence be offered that would fit your own criteria for the biblical presentation of Jesus to be true?
For Jesus to exist, or Jesus to have done all the things in the Gospels?
Well, let's start at the bottom and move up from there. Let's start with existence and then go from there.
Well, I would be instantly persuaded if there were so much as a papyrus letter from somebody that said, I saw the famous Jesus of Nazareth and heard the wisdom that he spoke. We have stuff like that for Apollonius of Tyana and Peregrinus. It might be sheer accident that we don't, but no evidence is no evidence. If somebody came up with a humble thing like that, that would solve the case for me right there, that there was a historical Jesus.
Okay, so for existence, and yet for how many people of antiquity, comparatively speaking, do we have that kind of evidence?
Oh, I agree. It's just that so much of the Gospels strike me as being so much like ancient myths or Old Testament stuff, that there's nothing left over as there is like with Caesar Augustus, who has many of the same biographical legends and so on. It might just, that's why I say it may be irretrievable behind all the legends. And I do not dogmatize. I don't tell atheists or anybody else Jesus didn't exist. Hallelujah, we know it. I always say there have been dogmatists like that, but I say I'm pursuing this paradigm and I lean toward this, but no one can know it, and I don't claim to.
Okay, so the second step then is, given that you said that the burden of proof lies to the one who would affirm such a Jesus. So beyond mere existence, you said a single papyri letter would be enough.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, but the Jesus of the New Testament, who does the things that Jesus did, that's beyond the realm of history, in your opinion?
Even if it happened, there's just no way to catch it so far back in the past. I don't know what I would make of a guy walking on water, but if I saw somebody do, well, I have to admit, if I saw somebody do it now, I'd suspect that it's a magician's trick. I don't know how any of those work either. I'd have to be suspicious of it, but somebody rising from the dead after days of rotting, I mean, I'm not going to deny that if I were to see it happen, but all the stories we know of are either medical cases of premature burial or legends. And so by analogy, I have to say, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, but most probably this fits into this category.
So if God had broken into history in the past in such a way as to accomplish these things, but was not doing them with regularity in our day, your methodology would preclude your acceptance on a historical level.
That's right, we'd be screwed. And the idea similarly about how would you know God had spoken? Could you define what it is that you atheists are denying? I've never really thought about that, but thinking about it now, I think this backfires. Atheists often say, since we can't show how a God could supposedly reveal himself without us thinking it's just one more utterance from Reverend Moon or Shirley MacLaine, you just can't know. And if he's holding us responsible for that, we're screwed. And they say, therefore, probably a fair God didn't do it.
A fair God. Okay, we'll pick up on that. You mentioned your quote to Cameron Riley down in Australia, and I loved the fact that not only did I read your stuff, but you actually took time to Google my name. That was good. I appreciate that. Most of my opponents don't. But you had heard me mention that particular citation. It seems like you felt that I was misconstruing what you had said. The specific quote was, so it wouldn't matter if the Gospels had been written 10 minutes after the events. You wouldn't know what to think. Legends grow up in no time. All right. Now, does it not follow from this kind of statement that there could not be anything short of multiply attested video recordings of an event that would be sufficient for you to believe in anything supernatural that is narrated as a historical event, like you just said?
I'm afraid so.
Okay.
Like, just think of these eyewitness tests they have now with just some odd thing, some clown bursting into the psych classroom, and he runs out and says, okay, everybody write down what you saw. They can't agree on anything that just happened, all the more when it was surprising. I just don't think you can trust. If we knew we had any eyewitness, which is all speculation in the Gospels, we just couldn't trust it this far back. We can no longer interview the people and all that, so we are stuck there, and it's frustrating.